It can't just be me, right?
No, it's also on YouTube as well.
All right, cool. I think he's catching on.
Damn.
This happens to me all the
Hey,
time.
I was on mute. I have to start again, my friends. I'm sorry. I was on mute. I have to start again. Ciao, calcio lovers from all over the world. I hope you are doing fine. I will be shorter this time. We will speak about 21-22 because it was a disaster for Juve. But today we have people from Milan, Napoli, Roma, and Inter together with us to finish and close that disaster season for Juve. A great season for Milan. A great season for Roma, I believe. For Napoli, we will talk about. Inter, they won some cups as well. So one thing I'm asking before introducing the guest is be respectful. Be respectful for all the teams. I know that majority will support Juve today, but be respectful for the people, for their opinion. You can chat because we will interact a lot with you guys, but today we'll try to have some fun. Some fun and some banter. Being respectful. I know. Now the people are hearing me. Also, Rabona TV is in the chat. Ciao Softic, ciao Stefan, ciao Punsara, ciao Nick, ciao Sashin, ciao Cecilia, ciao Stavros, ciao Uncle Sharma, that unfortunately has no voice, otherwise he would have been with us today. But let me say hello to the first one that entered today, and maybe also the first one that is in the ranking of Serie A. Ciao Martino.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for having me on, Beppe. All smiles finally this time of the year. First time in 11 years, so good. I don't know. I'm happy. It's like you stay on cloud nine after it's been so long. I'm sure Anthony knows after last year, so it's just amazing. That's all I gotta say.
We know at Juventini, we know of course what it feels. But we start to miss it. It's okay. Inter won, Milan won. Now we have to go back to normal. Ciao Wayne. Wayne that also won an important one. How are you doing, Wayne?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been a long time coming for this Roma to finally get something, but it's been a good weekend. I've kind of lost my voice a little bit earlier in the week, too, riding around on the back of Mourinho's Vespa up and down Via del Corso around the Coliseum. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
We have Domenico, Dom, from Napoli, supporting Napoli.
Hey, guys. Nice to be here. And we didn't win any trophies, but as De Laurentiis says, 13 years in a row in Europe. Let's go.
Indeed. Indeed. I would ask you immediately, when you see that tweet of De Laurentiis, are you proud to be the only team 13 years in a row in Europe? Or it's like, come on, President.
No, it's
why?
a joke. It's a joke. It's definitely it just rubs it in, you know. We're like almost there, but never there. So... yeah, I wish he just stayed quiet sometimes.
Like today, he said the beautiful things about Mercato. We'll speak about Mercato as well, guys, in the second part of the live. And we have Anthony from Australia, super early in the morning. Buongiorno, Anthony.
Thank you, Grande Beppe, for having me on. It's been a long time coming, and it's really good to be here. It's good to see Martino again and Arguri in person to you. It's good to be here with Wayne. I've been following him for a long time, to be in the same video forum as him. Congratulations on your title, and congratulations, Napoli and Dom. At the end of the day, you finished third under Spalletti. The goal was to get back into the Champions League. So everybody in this forum here can move forward into the next Campionato feeling positive in some way, and that's all that counts.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's actually not all that counts. It's part of what counts.
Beppe tweets every day about how there's gonna have a big summer at Juve, but he can't get excited. Please.
Oh
You're
yeah,
acting like they're gonna spend like 300 million, and you're not excited.
Martino, I even made a music about it. The official clip of Mercato is crazy. I will not annoy you and bother you with that song. I made a poll during all day on the channel for the people that were waiting with which was the club that had the best season in Serie A or whatever, because I said Milan with the Scudetto, Inter with Coppa Italia and Supercoppa, Napoli being third, Roma Conference League. I will close the vote now with nearly 200 people voting. Milan won. Milan won not only the Scudetto but also the poll, with 79% of the people said Milan best season, followed by Inter with 9%, but also Roma with 9%, so ex aequo there, and then only 1% for Napoli. Probably it was Dom that was voting for himself. It can be. It can be. I will shoot immediately with a question. Easy. Yes, no. Yes, no. Without too much debate. Did you love the season of your club? I will start. No. That was an easy one. Who wants to go? Wait,
Come on, Martino. You're top of the league. You have
I mean, it's the best season. Easily, besides the Champions League in 2007, this is the best one of my life. I was too young in the late 90s when they came back and beat Lazio. For that, there's no Lazio contingents here, so Wayne will be happy. But yeah, I mean, like it was just amazing because we know this whole like social media era and everything, right? Like Milan sucked during all of it. We were bad, so it was hard to get people into it and try and like explain to them how good we used to be in America. Because there's more PSG fans I know than Milan fans personally, so it was frustrating. So now this is like it just feels so good, like a weight off of your shoulders, even though I don't play. So,
Martino, you said there's more PSG fans than Milan fans?
That I've met. I've met more people who started rocking with PSG and English football clubs like Chelsea, for example. Like if anything, I know more Juve fans than anything. Milan fans alone, I just meet on the internet or that I'm related to. I don't know any like personal ones that I've like bumped into, work, school, nothing, nobody.
Traditionally, you would say that at least in the States, most fans of Serie A, it's either Milan or Juventus, right?
I would say so. Out of the most I've seen, and then Roma. Actually, there's actually a good amount of Roma fans, and then Napoli as well. There's just so many people that moved from Napoli. I have members of my family and friends that root for them, and those are really the big ones. I surprisingly, I just know a couple of Interisti. I don't know of any in America, to be honest. Just like
that's the same thing over here in the UK. You see a lot of Roma and Milan fans. I don't know, a bit less Inter and actually a bit less Juve, but I think the two biggest ones here in London must be Milan and Roma.
Are there Roma fans also supporting the team, or it's because they have most of the time super beautiful shirts?
Oh no, I think it's similar to what Martino was saying, that they come from Italy. I think there's a lot of people that move from Milan and Rome.
It's true.
I don't know why. It seems like just the Milan fans are going from Milan. But
too many Inter fans in Milan, I guess. Right?
No, because Lazio I can relate. With UK, you had Paul Gascoigne in the time that went to Lazio, and I met already some Lazio fans from UK because of Paul Gascoigne, the importance. For Roma, I don't remember a real identity of an English player, but it's true what you're saying. And the big cities like Roma and Milan going to London, UK, it makes sense what you're saying. Question, guys, did you make a prediction in the beginning of the season, yes or no, and was it right?
I made a prediction for Juve to finish first because I've got severe PTSD from following Inter for about, 26 years. So by default, I had to pick that. But I did think Inter were going to have a strong season, Beppe. To answer your original question, I like this season. I don't love this season. If Inter were trailing Milan throughout the entire campaign and didn't have 3 chances to close out the Scudetto, then I would have been less disappointed. the silver lining and the cherry on top of the nice cake is that we win 2 cup finals against you, Beppe. Had we won them against another team, it would not be as significant. So I guess our saving grace is the rivalry. And, you said it best in your match reactions to the Supercoppa and the Coppa. There is no good way to lose a final if you are Juve, and there is no good way to lose a final if it's a derby. So I think that was our saving grace for the season. But full credit to Milan. I did many videos on my channel, and there was barely anybody that thought Milan would be able to win their last 4-5 games in a row, and they did. So you have to take your hat off to them there.
Absolutely, because I was watching here. If we are just going indeed, because people they know the ranking and so on. But if you are looking the form, Milan won their last 6 games, but the last 5 indeed was versus Lazio, Fiorentina, Hellas Verona from Tudor, Atalanta, and Sassuolo. And we know that Sassuolo is always a difficult one for some especially the bigger teams. And it's true that a lot of people weren't believing in Milan doing well, but collapsing probably in 1 or 2 games in these last 5. And actually, there was one man, and it was my father. He said it in February: Milan will win, Inter will flop. But it's true that people were not that confident about Milan. Was there someone that really said, okay, I made the predictions and I said Milan will win, or Atalanta will be in top 4 because Atalanta disappeared, huh?
I really didn't think that Milan were going to win. Just they kept failing upwards. It was like, if you look back to Fiorentina, the keeper gave them the ball. He gave Leao the ball. And all these, plus the refereeing and these player mistakes, they kept amounting. And I'm looking at Milan like, is this legitimate? Is this serious? Like, they keep getting away with these performances where in my mind, I'm like, they're good, but they're not great. This was not a Scudetto team. And then on top of that, Leao decides to be unplayable. Theo Hernandez is off the charts. So it was like this perfect storm of things that didn't make sense combined with some great performances. And I got to say, like, ultimately fantastic coaching that sees them pull away. So it's a crazy season for those regards.
They didn't lose a game from January on since the Spezia match. And if you watch it, you're like, there's no way. The way everybody was talking about it is like it sounds like they lost a game or 2. They only lost once, and that was to Anthony's Inter with the 3-0 semifinal. They weren't losing, even when they were losing players. Just probably right around when we played Juve and that 0-0. That was like one of the worst games of the season, honestly. Like, just like pure spectacle wise. But they just didn't lose, and they felt like there was a lot of missed opportunities as well against Salernitana and like some of these other sides. And then
Spezia.
And then you see, and every Milan fan, like, we know we lost to the big teams all the time. We weren't winning derbies. We were losing to Juve all the time. Roma, there was a stretch we couldn't beat them for years. We weren't beating Napoli in Napoli for a while. Like, we knew all that was a thing. But if there was 2 sides that were always causing a pain in our ass, it would be Sassuolo and Atalanta because of the defeat 5-0 to Atalanta. And then what kicked off the whole era of being in the banter era, which we're trying to go off of today, is, Berardi scores 4 goals and Allegri's sacked like 2 weeks later. And that's when the whole downward spiral was. So you talk about PTSD for 26 years. That's what the PTSD was down the stretch. And Sharma was saying it too. No one expected 6 wins out of that. They thought there's gonna be a slip up somewhere, and they just didn't. They were amazing against Sassuolo.
I think they played against teams that had nothing to play for, though, which is a big factor.
But also,
usually in a title run, the last 5 games, you get that slip up by playing against a Genoa fighting for survival. Yeah. Who did Milan have in the last 5 or 6 games?
They had
Fiorentina,
Genoa, Lazio, Fiorentina. Fiorentina was playing, and Lazio as well. They were playing to qualify for Europe. Then you have Verona, had nothing to play. Atalanta, nothing. And Sassuolo, nothing. That's true.
Yeah, the last 3 games, the most critical ones, it was against teams that are very good, very tough teams. But it would have been so difficult if one of those if Atalanta was in the contention for Champions League, or if it was against the relegation team. I mean, obviously, you can't predict that before the season, and credit to Milan, obviously.
Sure. But were they the strongest
I think it was fortunate.
Team? Was Milan really the strongest team if we are looking at the whole season, or just even before starting, if you are comparing? Because Anthony said, I've put...
As Wayne said, they found a way every time, and I think the strongest teams find the way. So when you look at a team like Milan, who somehow manages to get so many points all the time, you think surely at some point they're going to pick up their game and then they're going to be unbeatable. Like, because if they're winning already when they're playing badly, imagine what they can do when they play good, because they've got really good players. So for me, it was always a matter of, okay, they won this game, maybe a bit lucky. That means that they're going to win the next one because they've got the players to do it, you know.
Yeah.
They're not going to have 2 bad games in a row.
They didn't lose against the top teams besides Napoli. They play every single team that qualified for Europe. They did not lose to besides Fiorentina, which was probably their worst match of the season, and then the Napoli 1-0 at San Siro. So they were beating and earning these points against the top sides too. So that I think like is easier to stomach for people, because Inter had a tough time versus us, even though I thought they blew that one. Like there was like 12 different matches I could think of for Inter that if they just had like that extra oomph like of scoring, then I think they win the league by 5 or 6 points.
Martino, looking at the stretch that we had down February, how much do you value the idea of, you know, dropping out of Europe in January? Because it happened for us under Conte. We didn't come third and go to the Europa League. We did the season before that and ended up having to play 45, 46 games, whatever that stupid amount is. If you make it to the Europa League final, you've clocked way too many games throughout the season. The year after, we bow out in last place and we've only got 1 game a week to focus on, and that's where Conte pisses the league. And do you think that was a big factor going down the February stretch?
Absolutely. Because they were missing guys again in January, because they had Afcon, Kessie, and Benacer leave, your 2 best midfielders. And then that's what I was saying prior to the season. I was like, my goal would be make Champions League again, try to win Coppa Italia because you're good enough to do that, and either advance to the knockout stages or finish 4th, because I can't do this Europa League.
So you can't do that same strategy next year, though.
You
can't sacrifice the Champions League again. I think Milan has to go into the Champions League now and consider themselves one of the top 8 teams. You know, you are in pot 1. You need to be the team that represents Italy, because that's what the table says. And I think it would be, I think, very disappointing if Milan gets knocked out again in the groups.
Not going to be a tougher group, though. I mean, that group was just insane. If you're like defending Spanish champions, Atletico, Porto's one of the best Portuguese teams in recent times, and then obviously Liverpool went all the way to the final. So like, but that's the big thing, though. You have to have that consistency. And now, you know, Maldini was talking about it. Okay, this is this level, and a lot of the younger fans saw it. That's great, but we go higher, and then we have to go higher and higher. So we'll see what happens. All smiles now, though. I'm not going to panic. We're not even in June yet, so
Exactly.
You think Milan can do it in Champions League a bit further? I don't know. I'm doubting.
It's too early. I always like to say judge after the market, because the preseason predictions we were saying, Juve was going to win it. I thought if they still had Ronaldo. If they didn't have Ronaldo, that's when I was like, Inter for me. I thought Inter had everything, despite like them fixing it up. Because there are certain times during the summer they're like, no Lukaku, they're done for. But then you see like some of the additions they make, you're like, well, Serie A is not really that great that they need Lukaku to win it. Like they have just enough. They were right there. So, and they took it to the final match day. I don't know. It just really depends on what they do, because apparently new ownership is coming this week. So who knows what the ambition is?
The big debate on Milan side that I saw online was who was the best player. Some people are saying Maignan, some people are saying Leao, and some people are even mentioning Ibrahimovic for what he brought in terms of experience, motivation, and probably a bit less on the field. Wayne, if you're watching Milan, because I want Martino to answer last, who was the factor?
You know, Maignan has something like 15 clean sheets. He led Serie A. But I also just think about how good Leao was. And I look at that last game against Sassuolo, the amount of assists and the goals that this guy scored. And I used the term unplayable before. When he's on, he is the best player in the league. There's nothing you can do against him. He's fast. He's powerful. When he moves, he looks like he's gliding. It's really that next level. It's that elite category, which Serie A has some really good players, but there's very few which are at his level. He has that special something. And I couldn't even imagine being a right back or a terzino trying to defend against this guy. It would be mission impossible, because ultimately he's going to get past you. He's going to put that ball on his right foot, or he's going to take you down the touchline and make you look silly. He is undefendable. So I think that could Milan have pulled this out without Maignan? I say yes, but without Leao, no. And for that that's why I feel that Leao is the MVP of the
If-
entire
if-
season.
if
Can
he
I add a
improves
name?
a bit his precision in front of goal, he can be someone extraordinary. Because now he has a close of 150. He's not reaching it now because it's still early. But if he's able to adjust and improve his precision in front of goal, he can be worth them 150. He's great. He's really great.
He's great.
Can I add a name? I think Olivier Giroud was the key factor in Milan's title win. Goal against Napoli, goals against Inter. He scored what? Something like not more than 10 goals, but all of them were just winners. You know, it wasn't the goal when you're 2-0 up. It was the goal that got you the win. It was the goal against the big teams.
Breaking the deadlock.
I think, honestly, without Giroud, because
Just so many guys.
because I think Magnan and Donnarumma, I think they're more or less the same level. Leao, I don't think he improved dramatically compared to last season. He was still a baller last season. What Milan really had this year, I think, was Giroud. That was different from last year. That's what got them over the line, I think.
I've
good
asked
shout.
the question in a poll, but I didn't add Giroud. At the moment, Leao is winning and smashing it with 73% of the votes. MVP. Maignan, third, because Pioli is receiving 12%. Maignan 11% and Ibra 5%. So Giroud is a good name. Pioli, important factor, Anthony, because then I want to switch to Inter with Inzaghi and also them. Actually, in a way, maybe bottling it. But how important was Pioli for Milan?
Pioli is the X factor, and everything just falls underneath him. And it's such a testament to Massari and Maldini for having the faith in him. Because remember, and Martino will know this, you guys were inches away from moving to the Ralph Rangnick project, and I think that's a situation that no club really wants to find themselves in at the moment. Really close, and that took a lot of balls, a lot of cojones from Maldini and co to make that decision, especially after seeing Pioli's track record. They made that decision right at the time that the regular Pioli collapse was meant to happen. That was the period where you think he might go downhill the way he's done at his other clubs, but all he's done is gotten stronger and better. And it's a good shout from Dom like that. Giroud is such a big game player. I know it better than anybody here. I had to watch him bang it in twice in 6 minutes to overturn the entire season. But overall, Leao, he was just, I don't know if defenders just forgot how to defend when they came up against him at the end of the year, or if his body language, strength and versatility just made them shit their pants. Sorry for the language, but he was unplayable and undefendable at the end of the season. It was so frustrating. I'd see him pick up the ball 40 yards out and I'd just turn around to look at my dog. I'd look back and he'd be celebrating already. It was nuts. So Leao for me gets the best shot.
I want to go it's good that we are to you. Oh no, Martino needs to answer. I forgot about you.
I wasn't gonna let this escape without just a little shout out to Tonali, because he was the most consistent midfielder we had. I thought, like, the amount of pressure I think he had out of any player on Milan, I think it was him that really rose to the occasion. But I think it was Leao. He had 30 more dribbles than the next player in the league. Getting double digits in assists and goals. Only Berardi was the only other player to do that. And he's doing it without a number 10 or a right winger that's a Milan level quality. And he did that. For me it is. But that's why a team is a team, right? They're so great. There's so many different guys you could point to. And that's why they were fun to root for.
Tonali's definitely so balanced. I mean, when I run his stats and I look at him, there's nothing that stands out. Like, there's no, interceptions or shots on target. There's no real defining statistic that goes for him and makes him look like, high caliber player. But what he does, I think, more than anyone else, like you just mentioned, Martino, is he's so balanced. He's up and down. That's what an intermedio is. When you have that player in the midfield who's up and down, they should be balanced. And I think that for the next few years, man, Tonali was just, you got to remember, they got him on a discount too. That's just a wonderful piece of business.
I have to say that Tonali for me is the biggest improvement from 2021 to 21-22. Let's go, because Anthony has like 7 minutes left before leaving. Inter, 2 cups won. You already said it, and it hurt me a lot, but correct, you won both of them versus Juve. But behind Milan, because of that Bologna game, because of Radu. By the way, happy birthday to Radu. What happened to Inter?
It wasn't so much, but like Bologna was bad. The Radu mistake was bad. But when you look at it, Milan still did their job. For me personally, you go to Genoa when they're at their lowest point of the season and draw 0-0. That's when I went ballistic in the morning. You know, we all know as fans, you have those moments, those thunderbolt moments in your head where you're like, this doesn't seem right. Something's wrong here and this isn't going to stop here. That was the moment for me. The week before that, Milan dropped points against Salernitana. We should not have let Sassuolo come to the San Siro and kick our culo in 20 minutes with Raspadori and Scamacca. That shouldn't have happened either. We should have gotten a point from that game minimum. The derby turnaround, another result as well. We've had results this season where we had penalties in the last couple of minutes and didn't convert. As you said, Beppe, like, you know, coming into this season, Inzaghi had a very tough job. Inter itself had a tough job. You get stripped of Conte, Pintus, who, if people didn't know his name already, they definitely know him now. Oriali as well, and your backroom staff. On top of that, you get gutted in the middle of the fish with Lukaku, Eriksen, God bless him, and Hakimi as well. It was never going to be easy for Inzaghi, but Beppe Marotta does good damage control. And as I said, if we were trailing and fighting neck and neck throughout the season, Inzaghi would be looking back at this season going, I did a great job. I did a terrific job. We won 2 cup finals and we went almost all the way. But the reality of the situation is that you had the chances in late December. You had the chances in late January. Yes, the February stretch was ugly. I wouldn't wish that fixture list on my worst enemy, even you, Juve, Beppe. But at the end of the day, we still came out of February with opportunities. And we came out of February having games where we could have stretched that lead a little bit more. And we didn't. So we need to look back, and Inzaghi will look in the mirror going, we need to fix this from next season. So did we bottle it? Yes, we did bottle the Serie A title. I'm not going to sit here and say that we didn't, because I'm a big believer in self-reflection. And in order to move forward, you need to point out your flaws. And I think even though there is no way I would sit here and say I'd rather not win the Scudetto, but this is the sort of result that's going to force Zhang and the directors into the dressing room and go, okay, we didn't exactly get this right. Because had we stolen this Scudetto right at the depth from Milan, I fear that we may have gone into the locker room and Steven Zhang would be waving his wand going around going, look at what I can do with the minimalist of resources. Let's start cutting everybody else. So, you know, watch into space in the Mercato, guys, because it's going to be another interesting one.
I think there was one question, because I really want to use the time that you are here before leaving, Anthony. But it's not to create controversy or not, but I'm not used to find excuse. When we lose as Juve, we lose. And that's it. You have to accept it. Of course, when you are doing watch-alongs, and especially in post-games, you are furious because of one mistake of the referee or not. But at the end, most of the time, if you know, I'm always saying, the ranking after 38 games is most of I know it's always correct. The strongest one wins. The 3 other ones, they go in Serie B. It is what it is. Except of, you know, these kind of head-to-head 1 point that can... But normally every mistake is balancing each other. The only controversy point that I want to take this year, and maybe because I was frustrated, maybe because I was angry, but I saw a lot of mistakes in favor of Inter. Maybe too much. And I'm not speaking against Juve. I'm speaking in general. Versus other teams. That was even, for me, if Milan didn't win this year's Scudetto, I would have probably right that it was a bit stolen for the first time in my life. Am I correct that you lost it despite having had a lot of in favor mistakes? Or am I exaggerating because I'm a Juve fan? That can be.
I think you're exaggerating, but only a little bit. There is substance to what you're saying. And you're always very fair. I remember when we beat you in the Coppa Italia final, you only dedicated a couple of minutes to talking about the referee. And then you went in on your own players and the management and the structure of the game, rightfully so. I think Inter are a side, and, you know, statistically, it'll back this. In Europe, we create more chances than almost any other team. We're always a top 3 to 5 chances created team in the last 2 to 3 seasons under Conte and Inzaghi. And everybody knows the more times you can get the ball into the box and do a little dance and do a little shimmy, you're probably going to get more penalty calls than a team like Allegri, who does not want to visit the box much.
It's true.
However,
it's correct.
Yeah, there were some decisions this season that I've sat and thought, I'm like, it might not be 100% wrong, but you shouldn't be giving us this if you didn't give that to somebody else. And I felt that there was a shift throughout the season that did see us get more rubs of the green. In our fixture against Juve, the first one, I don't think it should have been a penalty on Denzel Dumfries on Dybala, but that was early in the season. Come the end of the season, that penalty has to get given 100 times out of 100 now. And I think our biggest beef here as a collective is, when is Calcio, when is Italian football going to put their foot on the VAR and start to use it consistently consistently and
Correct.
properly, because at the moment there are dubious decisions each week for every single side. And it became a problem this season
It
because there
happened
were a
also
few
with
calls that went in.
Acerbi,
Yeah,
Acerbi, because you know it, he scored that last minute goal. Maybe they are not even going to Europe. It changed a lot. A last question for you, and then I leave you, Anthony, and then I speak with Wayne and Dom, and that was this question here.
I said it at the end of last season. If you win the Scudetto, you go and get Dybala because there's no risk anymore. It's just a power flex. It's just Big Beppe walking in with his chest going. Remember 2.5 years ago when you guys wanted Icardi and I said I was going to bring Dybala? Well, we're in full circle now. The thing with Dybala is I really thought he was chasing a bigger paycheck than what it is than if he was to come to us. I think from a Juve fan's point of view, and I can't talk about it, I would have liked to see him go to anybody but Inter. We will take him with open arms at that wage, knowing what his ability is. I think Juve wanted him to be more of a leader or an heir to the Chiellini project. It was quickly found out that he is not a leader, to be honest. He is a world-class talented footballer, but he is not a man to carry a club forward. I think Juve have made the right decision, not caving to his salary demands and offering that big contract. It's one of those situations, Beppe, where we're going to have to get together at some point at the end of next season if Dybala goes to Inter and go success or absolute disgrace. Because
if you have to choose one, Lukaku or Dybala.
I take Dybala because I like Lukaku and everything he did for. Yeah, I'm gonna take Dybala because I feel like Inter could really use somebody in the hole to break it up a little bit more. When we don't have Brozovic, we are half as good. And I'm not saying Dybala can replace Brozovic, but it adds that one little bit extra element of technicality. But why not both? We'll see what happens, Beppe. It'll be really nice to get both, but we'll see. It's a tough economic game for all of our clubs at the moment.
Yeah, it's true. Anthony, thank you for being with us. I will leave you. You have a lot of things to do. I was super happy to have you for the first time on the channel. You're welcome whenever you want, except the day that Inter wins versus Juve. Then I prefer not having you around. But all the other days you can.
Beautiful. So 3 out of 4 times next season I won't be welcome again, Beppe. No. Is that right?
That's over. That's over.
Thank you so much, Beppe. Everybody loves you, man. Keep doing your great thing. Ciao, Martino, Wayne, Dom. It was a pleasure.
Anthony.
Ciao, boys.
Ciao.
See you, man. I'd just like to say that as a Napoli fan, I agree with you. I had the same feeling that between my rivals, Milan and Inter, it was Inter that was getting a bit more favors. So I had the same feeling, being in that title fight, that if it wasn't going to be Napoli, I'd rather have it be Milan because it just seemed more fair that way.
I believe the same. I really believe the same. And I can't even say Juve, because at the end we were not even competing. Since the first day of Serie A we were not there, so it's not to say Juve should have won, but watching objectively, for me this year, if Inter wins it for 1 point on Milan, if I'm a Milan fan, I would have been really pissed off. Dom, what happened with Napoli? Because I always say on my channel, and you can know it, and that's really what I believe, Napoli, they won 2 amazing Scudetti with Maradona. Amazing. I watched again the documentary last time. It's epic, incredible. But since they are there, and from the moment they have that pressure, they collapse. Then Spalletti for me is one of the top Italian coaches, except from the moment when he starts losing it. From the moment he starts losing it, for me, Spalletti is not the one that is able to remotivate your team and say andiamo ragazzi. It's more a coach like he's watching on the ground and walking in, isolating himself. And if you have that combo Napoli kind of way of behavior when they feel that pressure plus Spalletti, I believe that's what happened. Am I totally wrong with what happened to Napoli, or?
Yeah, I don't think it's a Spalletti problem. First off, I think between Pioli, Inzaghi, and Spalletti, I don't think Spalletti has anything less than them. In fact, I think that the 3 best coaches in the league are the guys that came below, which are Allegri, serial winner. Okay, he plays badly, but serial winner. Sarri, for what he showed that he can do, and he's won a Scudetto, he's won the Europa League, all that stuff, and obviously Mourinho. So I think the 3 best are actually below us. I think Spalletti sees Pioli winning the Serie A and says, he's not better than me. So I don't think it's a Spalletti problem, because this is a problem that Napoli has always had. We've always gone so close but haven't been able to do it, and we just crack under pressure. Anthony was talking about Inter bottling the Scudetto. Match game 30, Napoli-Milan are tied on points. It can go either way. We lose 3 games in a row, Fiorentina, Roma, and Empoli.
I don't think it is a Spalletti issue. I think you're right. I think ultimately it came down to AFCON and quality overall spread throughout that team.
Yeah. Oh, it's a mentality thing, because even AFCON, I mean, we got over it. As I said, we were 8 games to go, tied on points with Milan. I think Inter had a game in hand, so technically they were still first. But it's just one of those where you win against Lazio in the 94th minute, and then you just go off and have 3 horrible games like that, just completely crack under pressure. And then as soon as we're out of the race, all of a sudden we start playing well again. Everything's nice and lovely again. It's
6 goals against Sassuolo. I think you're right. There's just certain things on how you see other clubs bounce back from, like Milan last year. They were close and they blew it, and it was like it kind of felt detrimental to like what the future could be, because this current crop of players, right? We're not talking about Milan in the 2000s or Saki's or Capello's teams. This is a totally different team and vibe, and like how are they able to get past it? And I saw some people on Twitter talking about it today. It's like, how do they mentally prepare? Like, okay, we had a rough loss. This sucks. But what are we going to do to bounce back from it? And it kind of just felt like one bad thing and then another, and then they just let it affect them too much, because even like a bunch of your fans could even say they saw it coming. And that's the real frustrating part, because I root for teams like that in America, for sports like that you just know you've seen the same TV show time and time again, and you know how the ending is, and it's very frustrating.
What you're saying is correct, Martino, because last year with Milan, at a certain moment, Pioli is saying publicly, if we don't win, it's okay. This year, when they were about to win, it was missing 3-4 games. He said, no, we have to go and we have to try to win. Yes. It's just a behavior, what you're saying, in the message that you are giving to your teams, that is totally different. And I think that these little things are making absolutely the difference.
Yeah. I think we underestimate... I keep going back to Giroud, but I think that's what really changed with Milan this year, because... I mean, let's not forget, he's a serial winner. He's won the World Cup. He was leading France in the World Cup. People forget that. He was in a team, the starter of a team that won the World Cup. He played for Chelsea, won numerous Premier Leagues, won numerous trophies there. I think him and Ibra have given that team such a... And I think, one man maybe might not have been enough. Ibra got them 80% there, and then Giroud came on and gave them that 20%. And I just go back to the 2 games against Napoli and Inter where Giroud scored the 3 goals, 2 against Inter, 1 against Napoli. That's the serial winner mentality that teams like Napoli don't have. Who do we have that has won a World Cup?
Look, the question of Cecilia is that she's asking, what do you think about the Insigne? Because he won Euro 2020 in 2021.
Yeah, but Insigne not as a protagonist. We saw that against Spain,
not as a protagonist in Euro 2020.
Against Spain, he was sacrificed, put as a number 9. Obviously, didn't have such a good game. And then in the final, I don't think he played very well. He played very well against Belgium, but I honestly don't think that, come a certain point, semi-final onwards, when it really, really, really mattered. And that's the story of, I think, Insigne. He's great. He's a great player.
Was he already gone with his head, or you think that he gave his best?
In a final, in a semi, he's not going to score that goal. He's not going to make that difference. And he, pulled the plug on us halfway through the season. How can a leader of a team be someone that's got his bags already packed? What kind of message does that give the players around you? So
I see Wayne is an Insigne fan. I see it at the facial expression. Wayne, go for it. Yeah, I agree with Dom.
I saw Insigne as a player in the past tournament as one who always wanted the ball, who dropped back to try to progress that ball forward, to make things happen, provide something out of nothing. I understand Dom's point in that the biggest of all big games, he disappears. I think just at that level of quality, it becomes harder for him to play his game. He's man-marked. He's facing against tougher center backs and wing backs who are going to cover him a little bit more and prevent him getting into those small spaces, good defensive midfielders. So it becomes more difficult. I also agree with what you said about leaving in midway. I think that was on him. He should have done definitely a better job at keeping that under wraps with Toronto. I have a hard time imagining he wanted it to go down that way, but ultimately, like you said, he made that decision halfway in. And for the leader of your team to go and do that, well, in Naples, there's this big song about what Insigne means to the team, being the hometown boy. And Napoli, the city itself, is very different from, let's say, any team in the north, which is people from Napoli truly have their own identity. And for him to go and do that is just such a kick. I think that it kind of hurts his legacy. But at the same time, I would never undermine what he meant during the Euros, because I just remember him being as a standout performer for I would say more than 75% of those
He was
games.
important. I just feel that in the Euros we had so many other leaders that I think Chiesa from Juve, I think the back four, which was I think incredible, Donnarumma as well. I think we had Verratti and Jorginho bossing the midfield. There were some players, I think, that whether they were there or not there, I don't think it would have actually made that much of a difference, Now, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying I don't think he's
There's levels to it.
there's levels to it. I think you take away Donnarumma, we weren't going to win the Euros. You take away Chiellini, we weren't going to win the Euros.
Guys, I'm just telling that we are on a channel where there is a Napoli fan who is against Insigne, and there is a Roma fan who is defending Insigne. Normally it should have been the other way around. But
he's not the guy. He's not our Ibra. I think he's not.
No,
He's definitely not your Mertens.
That's the thing. Also, Mertens, I think he's more of our guy, and he got put on the bench this year. I think if we had played Mertens with a bit more minutes, I think the team could have really rallied. And we saw it against Inter, for example. He came on, and the team just woke up out of nowhere.
Welcome to life under Spalletti. You talk about putting a legend out of his place. Spalletti's the best at that. So good luck to Mertens for next season.
I want to ask that question to Dom, but first let me say thank you to Guido Gencarelli, who extended his contract with the membership on the channel. He's saying, like last year against Juve, Insigne missed the winning penalty. And then I also want to thank Nero Ghost, second month as a member, also extending the contract. Papers are signed. He's saying Forza Radu. The Inter fan is gone, but it's true. Forza Radu will always have to say it. Do you think that Bernardeschi, because today, Presidente Aurelio, he said that he's already since 3 weeks speaking with Bernardeschi, offering kind of a bit of less money than at Juve, of course. What do you think about Bernardeschi to Napoli?
I think he's obviously going to have a squad player role. I don't think we're going to get him to be a starter, I hope. He's just not got the output that we need. He's not got enough goals or assists over the last 2 years.
If you give him 3 million at Napoli, he's definitely a starter. I don't know if it's a good choice or not.
Well, that's the thing. It's a strange one, because why would you buy someone with such low stats? And I know football's not stats, but surely...
I think they want to put Lozano on the left side, like he was at PSV. And I think they want to probably rotate with Bernardeschi and Politano on the right side. I think that's just like the way he's looking at it at this point.
I think it's crazy.
I'm not saying it's crazy or not. This the only thing that kind of makes sense to me. Otherwise, I don't.
Go for
and you're
Berardi.
stacking 3 guys.
I'd go all out for Berardi. I don't think he's even that expensive. Being in his late 20s, wants to change. He's going to probably push Sassuolo to sell him.
Yeah, that's
for a similar
player.
salary. You want to go for someone with, at least more than 10 goals assists combined.
I believe I
would like him if it's as a sub. But
with Bernardeschi, you know what the worst thing for me going him if he goes to Napoli, it's that mentally I'm not sure he will keep the pressure of Napoli fans, because they will be angry at him because he already has now a kind of history. I don't know if Napoli is the perfect thing. I don't know if
Monza.
I'm not even joking.
He should go to Monza. I don't think he's not worth it.
You know where I would have seen him to Inter, because nobody would have expected from Bernardeschi something high level as a starter at Inter with 3 million. He could have been a sub, not a starter. Without the history of what happened to Juve and so on, I believe he could have performed a bit better without the pressure at Inter than at Napoli or even Roma.
No, I don't want that.
No, but I mean, there people will look at him and they will expect something for him. I don't know if mentally it's a good choice for him to go to Napoli. I don't know.
Yeah, because he's coming from a big club like Juve. Historically, we don't really get that many players that come down from Juve. So, when you do get a player from a rival team, you want them to make a difference. And, you will get pressure on the player. So you're right. Bernardeschi,
He's better as a big fish in a small pond.
you think?
You
Okay.
believe he's
so.
better in a Monza?
I liked
for
him at
example?
Fiorentina back in the day.
Yeah, Wayne said small pond.
They will not take him in at Fiorentina back.
No way.
No.
You can't. There's not a chance.
It's
Because then Comiso.
Eh.
No,
I won't say anything else.
He can't go back there. He can't.
Wait, Wayne, because we will going slowly to go to Roma, but we were speaking about Dybala to Inter, but Jose Mourinho is calling him 10 times a day because he wants him there. Even Totti said, I want to give my number 10 to you. What about Dybala to Roma?
It's very interesting. If you ask me yes or no, I say yes. But if I have to really break down the math and what it means long term, if it means you're going to sell Zaniolo, to me it's a no. Just straight out. Like, don't even say anything more. If it's Dybala signs for 3 or 4 years, gets the number 10, but Zaniolo leaves, for me, no way. But if it's Dybala comes and they spend a fair amount of their salary on him, because Mkhitaryan is leaving, so there is some mobility there that there hasn't been, then I think you've got something interesting going on. If you had Zaniolo, Dybala, and Tammy Abraham working in a trident, in a front three, that would devastate teams. So to me, it comes down to what do you have to sacrifice in order to bring in Dybala, which is the main question, which makes me nervous.
Cristante is probably the first at the list.
As far as players they don't want,
to raise funds, financial. I think I could see him, Veretout, someone maybe
is
on the way
Veretout
out.
first, because
You think? Okay.
Mourinho loves Cristante, actually.
Mm-hmm.
He really likes him in the midfield. He likes him to clean things up. He pings the ball around much more. He's had a decent season. It could be Veretout who's up there. I could see them use some contropartite with Tommaso Milanese who's coming back, a couple other young guys. But, yeah, I'm afraid of what it could mean, who they're going to get rid of.
Is Zaniolo back at his level before injuries, you think? Or
No, that's going to take time. I mean, he blew out both.
And that's
knees.
the follow-up question. Do you think he's going to get back to that level, or are Roma fans in daydreaming about the old Zaniolo, thinking that's going to happen?
I don't think the old Zaniolo ever comes back, but what you will see is something that's completely different. Maybe he changes the style of his play. He regains confidence. He becomes much more of a this type of player that not hits you just with agility and sheer speed, but one that's better around the net and just with smaller, simpler movements who could really make the difference. But when you look back at this season, it has to be a write-off. If you were to consider that and have big expectations of a player who missed both of the past 2 seasons, and then not just the same ACL, but first the left and then the right or whatever it was, then having those expectations is unrealistic. So to me, I think he's going to really show up next season, and you're going to see a real renaissance for his career.
You believe that Zaniolo can become the De Rossi, the Pellegrini, the Totti? Because
Like a
for me,
Bandiera?
how I see it, as soon as Zaniolo has a possibility, he's gone from Roma. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's every mercato since 2 seasons what I'm feeling. Then he had the injuries that he stayed a bit longer. But, saying no to Dybala, I don't believe that Dybala will go to Roma at the end. I really believe he will go to Inter. But saying no to Dybala for Zaniolo, I don't know if it's a good choice. I understand the emotions, but logically, I don't know.
You have
It's
to
a
win the
big risk.
Scudetto. You have to win the Scudetto in those 4 years to justify it. Because if you don't, what's the most you win? Maybe one Coppa Italia, and Dybala leaves and Zaniolo's elsewhere, and he's a great player. Then it's a wash.
That's what I really truly think is that Zaniolo is going to become a great player. I also look at Dybala's injury history, and his MCL was out for half of the last season. He's 28 years old, and not that that's old, but when you start to have those knee problems where they're just There's no
True.
real solution. It's not like there was a big tear or something, which, okay, now he's better. But when you have those nagging injuries, very much like Javier Pastore had, which Roma wasted so much time on, you start to get deja vu, and it's not a good one.
I agree. I have two questions from Fedja. The first one is, can you guess which player is playing golf, won Champions League and 2 more cups? Some people were already answering. Bale, thank you, Fedja. And then is also giving a donation to say thank you and welcome to all the guests that we have on the channel. So thank you, Fedja. Thank you for your donation, my friends. Thank you for being here. Roma, you know that I have put Roma in my top 4 prediction beginning of the season. I saw them 4th. My prediction was, by the way, was Juve, Inter, Napoli, Roma. I was totally wrong on Milan. Atalanta, I knew that they would not be there. But I was really believing that Roma with Mourinho, would have done something. Also, the way that they welcomed him and so on. Then in Serie A, it was like a up because they were doing quite well in the beginning. They disappeared totally, and then they finished super beautifully. Not only in Serie A, but also and especially winning their first European trophy. Martino, what is your, because it would be too easy to ask and start with Wayne. What is your view on Roma, and do you think that they can be really happy to finish 6th, so behind il derby della capitale Lazio team, and winning that Conference League?
I'll be honest, I was kind of a Roma hater at the start of the season. I thought it was just a little too silly to just assume Mourinho was just going to instantly turn them into top 4. When we saw other teams are so talented, like Lazio, I respected what they had there. I thought Milan was going to be good enough. Atalanta, kind of surprising. For me, there was no Spinazzola for a while. You knew Zaniolo wasn't going to be 100%, so you're kind of like, who's carrying them to top 4? Tammy's awesome. I think he's a great striker. It's one of the best signings that they've had in recent years. I really thought what he did with the youth and the younger players like Zaluski is one of my favorite youngsters in the league. I think he's awesome. That's a keeper right there. Yeah. And the same thing with Felix. He still had, that's something that never fades, is that confidence you instill in players. And with that young core that they have over there, I think if I'm gonna botch his name, but Shamurodov or whoever they got from Genoa, right? If he doesn't flop, I personally thought he was the biggest flop in the league that no one talks about. It's 20 million euros. He did nothing, right? So I think next year, it depends what they do this summer. I think they have a great shot at top 4. I really do. But the confidence ending in this season and fully buying into Mourinho, that's a game changer for me, I think. Again, we'll have to see what happens.
That Conference League, some people, because for me a trophy is a trophy, so I'm super, they have to win it. I wish that our teams are not playing the Conference League, because that means that they did bad.
A bad thing.
But from the moment you are there, you have to win it. And they respected it. They won it. But the important, it's not only that cup, but it's also starting to say we are able to do something. And that will be a mega boost for next season. Someone in the chat was saying earlier, pay attention to Roma for next year. I don't know if they are able to win the Scudetto or not, but entering top 4, I would put them back again.
It's not crazy. I don't think it's crazy.
It's a strange one, because on the one hand, I agree that winning helps to win. And that's, for example, something that I think, going back to the whole Napoli thing, is something that we miss, winners. So Roma now have a squad of winners, and European winners, which is important. Having said that, if we talk about top 4 next season, let's assume that most people would assume Juve, Inter, Milan are going to be in the top 4. That leaves, Napoli and Roma to fight it off? Napoli are 16 points ahead of Roma. 16 points, and we threw away games like Empoli twice, Spezia at home. How are Roma, in 1 year, going to recover 16 points on Napoli?
Well, that's what I was saying. I think we have to wait to see what happens. Like if Fabian gets sold this summer, I think that's a big deal. I think people underestimate what the loss of Insigne is and what they could do in the middle of these matches, the type of threat he is up and down that left flank. Because listen, whoever you put on the left is instantly a downgrade. And I know the goal scorer, I think Victor needs to prove he's healthy the whole time again. I think it's unfortunate. Like I don't think he's injury prone in that sense. I think he's been unlucky. But I think there's certain things that they need to prove. And what's the friction? Because if this Koulibaly stuff drags on with this contract, I'm just thinking, we keep saying Napoli and the mental side of things. When does that happen again? That's the only thing. I think as of right now on paper, they're better than Roma. But I think there is a scenario in which if things like if Fabian gets sold, if there's still contract negotiation issues with Mertens probably on his way out, most likely. Koulibaly, if you don't get that signature done and he doesn't stay, that's Insigne now. It's Mertens, Hamsik, like all these like staples leave. It's tough. I'm not
tough.
saying
It's
you
tough.
won't make top four. I'm just saying I think
You
there's
think
legitimate
Napoli is a
questions.
better team on paper than Roma?
Yes, I do.
I think Roma have a very good team, and they should be nowhere near six. They shouldn't be 16 points from Champions League football. Let's put that out there. However, that's the reality of the situation. You are 16 points behind Napoli, and Napoli, whilst they do sell Insigne, who has only 2 goals in open play all season, so I don't think it's a huge loss. Whilst they might lose Mertens, who, however, didn't play very much, so that's not going to be as big of a loss. I think the only real losses might come from Fabian and Koulibaly. Napoli haven't spent a penny in the last year and a half. I think they've got they've got stacks of cash, I think, that they will just go and reinvest if they do sell.
If you spend them on
like
Bernardeschi, you will not do a lot. Huh?
Sorry?
If you spend them on Bernardeschi, you will not do really a beautiful mercato. Pay attention because we know we spend our money on Rabiot and Ramsey, and it didn't happen. We didn't have beautiful seasons.
No, I know, but people are saying how we might sell players. I mean, Napoli are maybe financially, in no. They don't have a problem financially. If we sell players, we will use that money and reinvest it. We're not a club like, for example, Roma was for many years, where they had to. They were a seller club for many years, Salah, Alisson, and all that, and they didn't replace players because they simply couldn't financially. I don't think Napoli's in that same situation. I think our books are in order. So I mean, we might lose a few players, but I think we'll.
You trust the recruitment to be as good as it's been? I think it's taken a step back from recent years. I think you haven't like Anguissa was great. I think he's probably the signing of the season, honestly.
Yeah.
But do you trust that? Like who they're going to put on the left side?
It's always a risk. I mean, we've already got on the left Kvara and Oliveira that came on, so they're clearly moving. They're doing something. But what I'm saying is, look, we don't know. I'm not saying Napoli's going to win the title.
Sure.
But I would find it very hard to believe that somehow we go from getting Champions League football with 5 games to go, having our striker out for 3 months, AFCON, which decimated our squad, other injuries, to then maybe next season having a more normal season, and yet somehow we don't finish in the top 4. I think that's a huge downgrade. I think people don't realize that.
Of course.
16 points to 16 points.
I don't think they'll be back in Champions League next year.
I don't believe neither. But I think it will be a battle more than this year. You see, because I really believe that the Roma, with the trophy won, because the mistake that, according to me, and then I will let Wayne speak about his team, of course, but the mistake, and I believe it was a calculated mistake of Mourinho, was to at a certain moment confront and the management, but also their players. And that's where he started playing these youth, and that's the moment where they had that dip, and then they started to have a cohesive team, working on people management, believing, and they started to grow. But they had that clash, and I believe that Mourinho knew that it was not that Roma was not building one day, but he was working for the future with the way he was managing it. Wayne, your thoughts about La Magica?
1 out of 10, to me, it was 7.5 or an 8. It's somewhere in between there with realistic expectations. And I want to start at the top. Look at this Friedkin ownership. It's their second year, year and a half in, and they do everything in silence. You never know who they're going to get. One day we woke up, Mourinho had signed for Roma. The other day, Kumbula had signed for Roma. All these surprise, no-linked transfer moves and organization, and they bring in their own people. They're doing it completely their own way. The Friedkins they're their own breed, how they have been able to work in silence and pull their strings. And I know, even though there hasn't been too much news, I know for a fact they're working on a stadium deal. On top of that, they're buying back shares. And when you start to buy back shares, it's because you want more control. You want to be able to manage your books a little bit differently, to work in the shadows even a little bit more. So they're doing stuff, not just for the players themselves, but organization-wise, they are revolutionizing this team. Go down to the manager, okay? Mourinho. He comes in after a tough time, Manchester United, Tottenham. It didn't go completely his way, right? But then, looking back, those were actually great teams, what he was doing with those players and how he managed to get United to win a Europa League, I thought was an accomplishment in itself. But he looks at Roma, and it's a different project. They can't go out and buy whatever player he wants. So what does he do? Like Martino said, he looks at the youth sector more so than coaches have in the past with with Felix, Volpato, Bove, Zalewski, and now we see that Roma has this young core. So maybe those purchases won't even come from abroad. They're going to be players that have completely bought into this philosophy and are part of this program, creating an ethos really at Roma. And then you move on to the players. He brings in Rui Patricio. He's got Cristante playing much better. Brings in Abraham, a player who was beyond the caliber of what Roma was, but it's a leap. It's a leap in quality. That salto di qualità that Roma has so badly needed. And I think that they'll make a similar move this summer of just adding and adding. So if I look back at this season, you win a Conference League, very good. But like you said before, G, if you're in it, you have to win it. In the league, we saw ups and downs. Started off very good. 4-2-3-1 formation. They beat Salernitana. There's a string of wins, and there's a lot of enthusiasm. By the middle of that season, right after Christmas, people start to get that negativity again. The media, Austini, the journalists of Rome, have their teeth really trying to sink into Mourinho. What does he do? He finds a way to get them playing again. No more Bodo Glimt nonsense, the 6-1 loss they had in Norway. All that changed, and something really consolidated within this team. And they started to play as a unit, and they started to build up something really good, even if their performances were not out of this world. But what they did show was that they could get an early goal and hang on and remain compact, remain solidified and organized. And to me, that's not just the simple fact that you're a good team that defends well. It's one of mentality, of concentration, and it is something which manifested throughout the entire season to come exactly at the perfect point. So Roma starts shaky, well, ups and downs, but ends in the best way possible. And now, like we've also said before in this pod, they've shown now that they can win. They win a European trophy. And what's that going to mean for next season? It's nothing but positive.
I've asked the question in the chat. It was quite a big battle, because I asked if both can't make it, because we are now saying Roma or Napoli, but maybe they both qualified and maybe Martino will be out of top 4. It can be. But I said if both can't make it, who's out of top 4? 58% are saying now, because it's quite there. 58% are saying Napoli will be out. 42% are saying Roma. So it's a big battle there. But I believe that Wayne started to gain some points.
He swayed people with that. I'll say this. As of today, right, May 30th, Napoli's in the top 4 for me. Things have to change for that. I think Fabian is so good, and I think he's gotten a lot of slack sometimes, like too much flack. If they keep him, I don't see how Napoli miss out on it. But if that were to happen, then I start questioning things. But as of today,
I think Martino is right, and I think long term Wayne is right. I think long term Roma have a real project, which is something that I think maybe Napoli's missing. Like, what are we actually doing with this team? I think Roma have a really good project, and I think long term Roma needs to be in the top 4. For the amount of investments that the president is doing. But as Martino said, I think as of today, players still haven't left Napoli. So 16 points for me still remains a huge gap.
Now, guys, because we were making fun, Wayne was taking a screenshot of the nice message, and I think he messed up. He's back. We were speaking about a lot of teams. Now I want to not defend Juventus, because I defended Juventus too much, even more than deserved this season. But I want to hear Martino and the other one. What are you thinking about the season of Juve?
I think it was the worst start I've ever seen Juve have. They looked awful. In saying that, I thought the gap was going to be too big for you to close, considering what Inter and Milan were doing, and even Napoli at that point as well. For me, it was the second they got back to that Allegri grind out the wins the 1-0 victories. We don't have to play the most amazing football. For me, it's like this. If you don't have that big of a gap towards Christmas time next season, right, and you get Chiesa back, if Vlahovic is actually a lot better and more functional with service, like Di Maria arrives, like I think they're right there contending with it. I think they could easily win the title. It's just a couple things are interesting to see how do they manage with Chiellini gone, because that's still a big loss. Bonucci's going to have to take on more minutes. How does his body handle it? There's no World Cup for them, so I guess that's a good thing. But yeah, to me, it's like, what does Allegri do to put the players he has in his position to make Vlahovic Fiorentina Vlahovic? Because what we saw with Juve over the 6 months was a good striker, but they paid for a great one, and they need a great one. And if Vlahovic scores 25 goals, Juve probably wins the title, honestly, which I don't want happening.
It could be serious, and I think it's a shame for Chiesa. I just miss watching him play in general. Forget teams, for a minute. Just as a footballer, he's really special and fun to watch type of player. I'd rather see Juventus go with a more pragmatic strategy rather than. I think it's in Juventus's best interests to not go with the free transfer policy, like the Rabiot Ramsey 2.0 by signing Pogba and Di Maria, but to start to look around the league more and get players like Raspadori on the left wing, Fratesi, players who could fit more long-term and show a type of identity within the group rather than just trying to plug in what seems like the best opportunity at that specific moment.
It's an interesting one, but I don't know if Juventus as a company, because don't forget, it's already 2 years that you are fourth, and this year no trophies. I don't know if you have time to do it, and that's the difference as a club like Juventus in the eyes of supporters, the shareholders. I don't know if you have time to have Raspadori and Fratesi as the one that will change your team. Having them on top of the one that will be instant players, of course. And that's the thing where I understand Allegri when he says, I want 3 players of instant players, Koulibaly, I'm sorry, Dom, Koulibaly, Pogba and Di Maria, and then we will let grow the Miretti, maybe a Raspadori, maybe, that's the idea. I don't know if it's correct or not, because a lot of Juve fans are going your direction, Wayne.
If you have the means. That's the thing. If Juventus can get that cash injection like they did for Vlahovic, then why not?
They have the most resources. It's like Inter selling again. Milan's a question mark. And I'm sorry, you pay Allegri all this money. You have to win. You have to.
But he knows, because the season was a disaster, Dom, of Juve. It was really a disaster. But Juve knows that if you do again what you did, we don't care about 4 years of contract or not. It can't. It's impossible. You can't
keep
Chiellini and Dybala leaving. That's huge as well. It's not so much a question of, it is a question of how can we improve the squad and make sure that we go from fourth to first if you're a Juve fan. But how do you actually, before you do that, how do you stop the bleeding of Chiellini and Dybala leaving? Because that's huge. That's taking them back 2 steps already.
For you, Dom, who's the biggest loss for Juve? Is it Chiellini or is it Dybala?
Tough one. I think if Dybala goes to Inter, that's a huge loss. Not only because he goes out of Juve, but because he goes into Inter and he gives points to Inter, or a direct rival for the title and top 4. But Chiellini, I think he's so hard to replace. He's
different types of losses.
You would really have to just go for a Koulibaly, but again, I don't think Koulibaly is gonna necessarily go to Juve. I think
maybe Roma.
I think
I don't think he would go to another Serie A club.
Barcelona, probably.
It's a very delicate position, that one, because De Ligt didn't live up to expectations, I don't think.
Koulibaly, if he goes to Barcelona because he said, you respect Napoli too much, and that's really respectable.
Speaking of means, who knows?
Bremer goes to Inter. Botman goes to Milan. Who do you take? It's hard for you, and
What's
especially
the
because you know
Torino?
what's the problem.
Bremer.
You have
Bremer
Bonucci.
should have been top of Juve's list, I
But he
think.
was. The problem, you know what
Yeah.
happened? The problem is that Juventus believed that they could have gone for Rudiger. They gave up an instant of Bremer to go for Rudiger. And at the end, Bremer, he found a way correctly with Marotta and Inter. And Rudiger went to Real Madrid.
Was
And
he
now-
was he even going to give him 35 million euros?
No,
Torino
but
to Juve.
you know,
Anyways, that's
he
he probably was going to give him a
opened-
fair price.
he opened at a certain moment to Juve, and then his requests were out of proportion. Juventus said, no, sorry, we can't. And that's a big annoying thing because Bonucci and De Ligt, they are not a perfect pair. They are both right foot players. De Ligt has to adapt and play on the left side of the field. Bonucci is a player that loves to wait for the defenders, while De Ligt is one that goes. They will need
One injury again, and this is why I was telling people earlier this season and why I didn't really love him for the title is you're one injury away from playing Rugani so many times. And there's not, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to him. He's a fine, solid player, but at Juve, again, it's the standard and the level. And on top of the fullbacks, you could argue they're probably the weakest out of the top four clubs that we've had. Like I still think those are issues there.
And we are lucky because Rugani, that is not my favorite player, he played 18 games and he played them quite okay. He didn't do a lot of mistakes. Lucky, because normally I was expecting a lot more mistakes of Rugani. It didn't happen, so Juventus was lucky in that way. So, guys, let's go to Mercato a bit because we spoke about... No. First, I need to tackle something. Italiano, Fiorentina. If we don't speak about Italiano, guys, it makes no sense. Who's a big Italiano fan who says, wait, calma, opinions on Italiano?
He's good. He's good. Let's not make it out like he's the next revelation. He's good. And can he get a job at a very good club? Yeah. He plays simple tactics. It's a low block, get the ball, get it out to the wings, get your striker into the box. Done.
He kind of bottled fifth place, didn't he, this year? The end of the season. That's what... It's like he had such a good season, and then I don't know what happened. I thought they were going to get fifth. I was so sure.
See, here's my thing with that. And it's fair. They're fair points. Show me another manager with that talent level that loses Vlahovic and doesn't have a tough time maintaining that fifth spot. They lost the best striker in the league besides Immobile.
I don't believe it's the striker that made a difference. You know, when they flopped, from the moment they played, they were obliged to play 2 games a week. That's where they flopped. Of course, Vlahovic. But if you are looking at the calendar, from the moment he is obliged to play the game in hand that they had, plus the Coppa Italia, that's the moment he's playing 4 games and he loses all of them, and with a lot of disrespectful results for Fiorentina, losing 4-0, 3-0, and so on. I'm happy that they will play a European Cup and that hopefully he stays, because he will have to deal with 2 times a week competition. And especially now with Serie A, with the World Cup, the games will be there. And that will be, for me, the definitive step to understand if Italiano... Because, like Sarri coached Napoli, he coached Juve, and he always says publicly, we are not coaches anymore. We are just managers, because you don't have the time anymore to explain, to train, to raise players, to explain them really well, to do a debrief, because you're playing 2 games a week. And it's not normal, because you're not the teacher anymore. You're there, you put the 11 men, of course, you transmit something, of course. But coaches that are not used to it, it's difficult, because normally they have like 7 days. 1 day of rest is 6 days. You play a game and you have 5 days to really... And from
Even
the moment
Conte
they missed
struggles
it,
with that
Italiano bottled it. What did you say, Martino? I didn't hear it.
I was saying even Conte still struggles with that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Conte
I mean,
is
it's obvious.
Yeah.
Anthony was talking about it. Like he's a night and day manager. That's why I thought they were going to finish top 4 with Spurs. He didn't have to play anything. He's just once a week in the Premier League. He already proven he could win the title. He could get Spurs to the top 4. And that's what he did. And it's a big jump. Spezia to Fiorentina, even regardless of what we think of them, it's still a big leap for a manager. So I think you're right.
It's a big leap. It is a good job. I like that the players that Fiorentina did buy in. The guy Igor, I thought he was pretty good. The right center back.
Cabral is pretty talented.
Cabral is very good. They got Piatek in, which fits just so nicely. Just a raw finisher. Not a guy with a great first touch who's going to take a lot of touches inside the box and make his own goals. But with those tactics and the wingers that, Paragi throwing those balls into the goal, in the center of the goal, well, all you needed really was a finisher, which is why Vlahovic did so good. But don't take anything away. At the same time, like Martino said, it is pretty impressive that he managed to keep up the wins while he lost his best player.
There was a moment, Dom, where Spalletti, they were talking about maybe sacking him from Napoli. Will not happen. And there was the name of eventually Italiano. Would you have loved to see Italiano at Napoli?
Well, he keeps beating us, so that's at least a few less games that we lose a season if he's with us. No, I think he's a brilliant coach, and I think Fiorentina had actually maybe the best improved team, I would say. As I said, they were maybe one win away from 5th spot, which was, what were they last season? 9th, something like that.
It was bad.
They were nowhere last season. No, worse than that. Bottom half of the table. So he definitely made some improvements. But yeah, I think he's got a really good potential to be a really good coach. But as you said, I think the biggest test will be next season when he's got those midweek games. Then we'll see what he's capable of.
People are asking you, Shervin is asking you, Wayne, where are the Lazio fans hiding?
They had to close the drapes and hide during the parade, as Zaniolo said. They're somewhere. I just don't know how people grow up and they're like, yeah, Lazio, that's my team. I never understood that.
Yeah, because you're a Roma fan. But it's true that being a Lazio fan, I don't know. People said me before, I wanted to invite a Lazio fan, but Lotito asked me 20 millions, and I couldn't. It's too expensive to have Lazio fans.
Nah, they're gone. That team is going to maybe 10th place. They're not going to stick around forever. Once Badi and Palermo are back, Lazio is a mid-table team.
By the way, pay attention to Monza, because Monza is back, and Berlusconi already said that we want to win the Scudetto, and then we want to win the Champions League. This morning I was doing a video. I said, I will not laugh too much about it because Berlusconi is crazy. He did it with Milan. He brought them to the top of the world. He came with helicopters and players inside of it in San Siro. I said, today, of course, I'm joking and I'm mocking Monza. They will not win next year. But with Berlusconi, I always pay attention.
Skira says that Balotti's on their radar, so that's already someone that they're looking to go after. I don't know. It's impossible to say.
No.
He likes to say things in public these days. He's like what? He's like 88 or something like
He's
that.
old.
He's really old. So
They're speaking this today. They spoke about Balotelli vice Vlahovic at Juventus. Guys, how do you see Balotelli being the vice Vlahovic?
I think he's the prima at Monza. That's your striker that Monza needs to sign. That would be. Can you imagine Berlusconi, Balotelli, and Serie A together?
again, yeah. I mean, listen. I mean, first Vice Vlahovic. I mean, that's the last player I ever see Juve signing is Balotelli. No way, man. Not a chance. I don't know if he ever returns to Serie A again. I don't think he's treated properly by a lot of the fans. I got to be honest with you. If I'm him, I wouldn't want to play there. Like, even look what happened at Brescia right towards the end before he got sold again. It wasn't proper treatment of a human being in general. Like, forget what the player is. If I was him, I wouldn't come back. He's got to come over here where Wayne and I live in America. He would be, oh my God, the headlines he would make over here.
He would dominate MLS.
If he wanted to.
But now he's in Turkey, he's doing well. No, I don't see neither Balotelli.
Balotelli Insigne for Toronto would be what a lineup.
That would be great.
Balotelli looking up with Drake at those Toronto games.
That'd be some party. some after party.
It would be. Oh my god.
Oh no, they
Yeah,
would.
but
do.
Monza has a good chance of being like a regular in the Serie A. You know, they've got an owner who I think will put in some good money, enough to keep them up. I think they'll be a regular. They'll be
Quick ascension up too. They got up pretty quick. They were in Serie A not too long ago.
For
and
4 years. 4 years.
I
Last
think
year,
it's relatively good timing.
yeah, because last
been a
year they
good
were
project.
about to, then they flopped in the last game, and now they did it. Even if there was a really strange penalty, I don't know if you saw it or not, but yesterday the 119 from Pisa, it was already extra time. It was really strange situation, but no, I'm happy because you need these kind of personalities like Berlusconi, Galliani, the passion that these. Okay, Berlusconi is sleeping, but Galliani, the passion of Galliani is crazy. Guys, who is your favorite signing? And that's probably one of the last question of today, or your dream signing for your team. The one that rumored or not rumored, because Mercato of Milan, maybe I'm wrong, Martino. The ones that I was hearing was Botman, Renato Sanchez, Origi.
Yeah.
These-
Those are the ones before new ownership, so I wouldn't even consider it like that. I guess I'll go first. For me, I mean, dream it would be Mahrez or Gabriel Jesus from Manchester City. One of the
Jesus
two.
is
For me,
strong,
that's what it would be. But again, that's why it's a dream, so it's probably not gonna happen.
Dom, who would you sign? Dream signing for Napoli?
Our team's perfect as it is. Just wonderful. No, I would. You know what? I would love for us to get a nice goalkeeper to replace Meret, some guy that we can, a Golini. It's not the headline thing, but
No.
I think we need to just sort that out because we've been having this Ospina Meret thing, and Meret's been quite awful with us. I think if we can sort that out, that's already a huge, a nice young Italian goalkeeper for the
It's a
future.
pity, because Meret was really one of the promises of a future goalkeeper. It's a pity, I believe, for Meret.
Yeah, if not Berardi, one of those two. Berardi on the right.
Berardi at Napoli, I believe that would be a beautiful fit.
Those two, I think.
Wayne, you won the Conference League. You have a bit of money. Who do you sign?
Koulibaly.
Eh,
Sorry, Dom. It's got to be him, or
He's good.
I think actually it's going to be Senesi. I get the feeling they're going to sign Marco Senesi, who I would be really happy with. And then on top of that, a center mid. Just some real boss, gutsy center mid who can really control the game. A guy who can play the simple pass, win the ball back, dictate the tempo. Somebody like that.
A Jorginho, or even more leader.
More, tougher. Much more tough.
Verratti.
Jorginho to me is a little soft.
Yeah.
I think I need someone with a bit more guts. Like the player that Bayern Munich signed last year after the Euros, Sabitzer, right? He was great. He was a really good player. And someone of that mold, like Gravenberch, who also Bayern Munich just signed. Yeah. So someone like that, of that mold, to me for sure, big, tall, strong. Not someone like me.
Gravenberch was one of my dream signings. That's a pity because he's good. But you can't do nothing if they don't want. Look like Lewandowski. Where will he go, Lewandowski?
Hopefully Barca, because that would be
Barca,
something to watch.
There is not a lot of options.
I've been reading they're still having trouble registering players again.
But that's
Yes,
the problem.
right? So how do they sign him?
The rules don't apply to them. They only
They're
apply
so
to
stacked as well in attack. I don't.
Newcastle.
Yeah. By the way, I'm happy for Nottingham Forest. That's nice to see.
Yeah, they're back in.
I celebrated with them yesterday. I was in London. They had all the bus tour. Well, not the bus tours, but they had all the fans in the buses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good to have this historical team back.
Same amount of European Cups as Juve, so you gotta have them back in there,
Guys, 1 hour 20. I think it was a nice chat to close the season. We were already projecting in next season because we start speaking about Mercato. We speak about what we have to do in next season. We can't wait. Just maybe finishing with the pronostic for Italy, Argentina, even if it's a kind of friendly. I don't know if it's a friendly or it will be an important cup in 10 years from now. But today, I consider it a friendly. Predictions
What
for
is?
that game?
So for Argentina, sorry,
Argentina,
Italy,
Italia.
Argentina. I think
on
it matters
Wednesday.
more to Italy after being knocked out of the World Cup, so they'll put in more of an effort than Argentina. I think they might come away with it.
if we wear those jerseys, might not go so good for us.
The jerseys are really, really ugly. I don't know if
What are they thinking?
I didn't find it great. You know the inspiration? It's they took actually the 4 World Cups that we won, and they took like 25% of the first shirt and it was actually
Really?
honoring. Yeah, it's actually to praise and to honor the 4 shirts that we won the World Cup wins, and at the end it's something really.
Couldn't they just put 4 stars instead
Yeah.
under the crest?
The color is
Something.
great. I like the color, but that's it.
The color is nice.
Yeah.
I liked it. Good. How do you call it? Like palette.
So no, I go for a win of Argentina. I believe Italy will lose, so that Chiellini lose the last game and he stops and then he go to Los Angeles. So, Martino, thank you for being here. You were
Thank you so much.
congratulations. I hope that if we do
Thank
it
you.
again in a few months or maybe next year to finish the season, that you will not win. Wayne,
I don't know.
go Martino. Go.
No, nothing.
Wayne, thank you. No, because I can't say that I want you to win again. But anyway, I was supporting you, Martino. You know that I was supporting you from.
I know you were.
You know that.
I can't say I'll probably do that for you because you saw 9 in a row, but you know.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Giuseppe.
And
Nice to
Dom,
meet Dom.
it was super nice to meet you.
It was amazing to be here, Beppe. Thanks for organizing this.
Guys, thank you also in the chat. Locatelli, today we were a bit less interactive. I hope you enjoyed that talk with a lot of different fans from Serie A. Congratulations to all of them. To Thomas, to Dr. A, Radovan, Locatelli, Aldo, Adia, Bogdan, to everyone. We see each other tomorrow morning. Ciao. And Forza Calcio.